Hi, William. Yeah, it's working. Sorry about that.
You're all right.
How are things?
Good, thanks. How are you?
It's grand now, not bother.
Philip
Not
on now?
bother. Huh?
Philip isn't on yet now?
No, I didn't hear from Philip yet. No.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Podcast master hasn't turned up.
So we have 30 registered for today, so
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And how have the rest of them been going, Joe?
Pretty much the same.
Is it?
We had 30 yesterday for Jerry. And 28 on for John Brosnan. Yeah, so like the numbers are good, you know.
What was the one yesterday?
The one yesterday was Jerry Hussey.
Okay, yeah, the mindfulness stuff.
Huh?
The mindfulness stuff, was
Yes,
it?
yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. You must be near the end of your 20K now, William, are you?
I've 1.5 left to do.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good. The only thing is, technically, I shouldn't be going over to Salt Hill to do it, but I will be.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
I
have this set to record, William. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, that's perfect because we might stick it up as a podcast.
Yeah.
That'd
work. You'll have to edit it now and put out this chat at the start.
Yeah. No, we'll definitely leave that one in.
Yeah, I have a bit of migraine today, so I'm not screen ready.
Not good. And how are the kids? How are the kids?
Oh, they're all grand now, not bother.
How do you do they?
How to do it? Know how to do it all.
How was your board meeting?
Riveting. I have to talk to you afterwards.
Was it?
Yeah.
You've had a day on Zoom, Caroline, haven't you? You come from one Zoom to another.
I actually had some work to do this morning for the board, other stuff, and I set my alarm for 6:30, and I set it for 7. And I 7 was my last minute to get up.com. And I didn't fucking sleep a wink last night thinking about it. Not the alarm. And then when the alarm, I have a new Google alarm. I got rid of my phone at nighttime in bed because I was looking at stuff and I couldn't sleep. So I have a Google, but of course Mike said now I'm shouting at the Google. So the alarm goes off and I go, stop.
Shut up, Google.
He said, you're as aggressive, he said, the poor alarm. So I didn't sleep a wink thinking about my aggression to the poor alarm clock and the board meeting.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Stop the neighbour's alarm, Caroline, would you?
Huh?
You'd stop the neighbour's alarm, would you?
I would. He said, you're so aggressive with the alarm clock. I said, okay. I go back to the other one. Right, guys, I have to make myself a cup of tea, need to know basis. Okay, you have been signed out because your account is signed in from another device. Okay, I'm still on it, it's fine. I was looking up, Joe, the option to have...
2 on at the same time.
Yeah, but I think that's an education package or another package. I don't see it in the basic packages, or not the basic, but just the, regular individual packages. It seems to be the education pack and another pack that allows you to have simultaneous calls, and they can be up to €1,600 membership.
Okay.
Yeah. But I would just have a look at it anyway, because we do need to have the ability to do, I think, a second call. So maybe one of those packs. Hi, Philip.
Folks, how are you?
Would Cisco WebEx not offer you something like that?
Stop now. I'm calling my silly name.
You in trouble again?
I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. The only thing is, I think I explained the situation to Pa last night. I think he might have got it. We might be okay, but.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the WebEx is not for me. Sorry.
No, it's
I need your light, William.
Philip, yes, I was about to say you need a bit of light on the subject there.
Great background, Philip.
Looking very good, Philip. That background.
It's
Cool.
just the artwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, yeah, it's nice.
Cool.
I'm going to put up a coffee behind me or something. I'm going to get a coffee, guys. Sorry.
Yeah. So how are we teeing this up?
Joe, will you do an introduction? No pressure.
No pressure.
No.
No pressure, Joe. No, she said.
Never
No.
thought about
Can't you look
it. Never thought about
No.
it. We've no information here. Oh my God.
Do you want an introduction or yeah?
I think we just need to.
We need to be set up.
I just need to say we need to welcome the two lads, but of course I'd need a bit of a spiel, wouldn't we?
I wasn't really screen presentable this morning, Caroline.
To talk to the club there. I'm wiping my eyes with my hair, need to know basis. Have you a bio, lads?
I did my hair this morning.
Yeah.
Good.
The
hairdresser is still working in my house.
Nicely polished.
Yeah, I even put the moisturizer on and all.
Is there anywhere where you have a few lines on yourselves there, guys?
A few lines.
I'll make the coffee, Caroline. You do the intro, yeah?
Well, I do think so. Otherwise it'll be very brief. It'll just be Philip and welcome to Philip and William. But
Sure,
have you bio there guys somewhere? No?
Did we send that on? Did we not send that on for the social media?
Joe, do you have a bio? Do you have their bios?
No, I just made up stuff on the social media myself. I didn't.
Yeah,
that was grand.
No profile picture. If you just mentioned when the itag podcast comes out and where it's available, I think.
Somebody give me the information.
So I can message you something here, Caroline.
Please do. That'd be great. You're under no pressure. You're presenting and messaging at the same time. I'm pretty impressed.
Yeah.
He works
and deciding how we're going to.
William, you relax there now and take it all easy.
So William, are you asking me questions or am I asking you questions?
We're just having a chat. We're doing a podcast about a podcast on Zoom.
You're leading it, are you, William? Are you going to lead it?
I don't know, am I?
It's just a coffee and a chat, isn't it?
I don't care. Just send me that stuff and don't mind the rest of them.
Do I need to make one of you host?
I'm not presenting anything. Have you slides, Philip?
I don't have slides. So
okay.
We're just having a chat.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So I'm William. Just so we're not kind of humming and hawing, those 6 points that I sent in the email. So I'm just going to walk through them: concept, through, promote. So I'm just going to say, I can tee it up, and the concept was, we've been doing this podcast now for over a year, blah blah blah, and we're going to take some time to kind of reflect on what we've learned and share it with our audience. So going to go through concept, plan, create, launch, promote. So there's 5 steps. So I'm just going to say, let's talk about step 1, or what did we learn about concept, and and just let it flow like that.
Sounds like a plan.
You send me something there, Philip? No.
Yeah.
I haven't got it yet.
Should have that coming through now, Caroline.
Have it there, thank you.
Am I coming through as dark as I look in my own room here?
Oh, you look great. You're looking
fantastic. Thank you. It's Friday. Why wouldn't I?
You do. You look brilliant there now, and your nice blue background and everything. We'd need music or something, guys.
That's easily fixed.
Yeah.
Let me fix that.
While we're waiting.
Bam, bam. What kind of music would you like?
Something that's going to make the people on the other end stay on.
Maybe not Fergal Sharkey then.
You have 1 minute of playtime.
Tracy Chapman, huh?
It's a big hit in our house at the moment.
You're buying a new car, Will?
No, definitely not. Not at the moment.
Good morning, folks. If you can hear me, you're welcome to How to Create a Podcast. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes here for a couple of more people to join. And you can listen to William's music while you're waiting. Thanks, William.
More than welcome. It's probably too early for Christmas songs, is it? Or since we've cancelled Halloween, we might as well go straight into the Christmas songs.
It's never too early for Christmas music.
Is it not? That's just because you host a Christmas radio station.
Are you playing jingles already? You are?
No, my daughter is for the last month. She said she's going all out for Christmas this year. So what do we want for Christmas, Philip?
A trip to the sports ground.
That would be nice. That would be nice. I've recently bought a 7-meter tripod mast for recording matches. I think next time they're playing in the sports ground, I'm just going to rock up outside it and stick the mast up and be live in there. It's just inside my 5K zone.
I'd say that's outside your zone now, William. I wouldn't like to go on there. It might be a little stretch too far.
Well, you see, technically, video production is one of these exempt services or essential services, is it?
Yes.
It is.
So that's
on
your
the list. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah. I think we'll get underway, guys. So you happy to? I know there's a couple of people still joining, but I think just respecting people's time, I think we should start. Are you okay?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us here this morning. My name is Caroline Coley, and I'm working with the Technology Association here in Galway and indeed the West of Ireland. And we're delighted as part of our 20-year celebrations to bring you How to Create a Podcast here this morning with our resident DJ, Philip Smith. Philip is a product owner at Fidelity Investments, and he started the itag podcast with William about 12 months ago. The podcast is available on Spotify and iTunes, and it's also on the itag podcast. He's been based in Galway for the last 15 years and is working in the tech industry. And he's also a resident DJ on, I'm calling him resident DJ, he can correct this afterwards, on Flirt FM. I have to take this opportunity to mention Flirt FM because I just think it's so awesome to be American. So you're welcome, Philip. And we have William Johnson joining him as well. And William has over 25 years experience to live in innovative software and solutions. In the past 5 years, he's been involved in the architect solution to build and lead software teams on behalf of a number of high potential startups, for example, Video Sherpa, and we're delighted to have William here with us this morning. I'm going to hand you over to the lads, guys. I've just a bit of housekeeping. If you could keep yourself on mute, that'd be fantastic. And when we're finished the presentation, I'm sure both Philip and William will answer a couple of questions. Again, thank you to Philip and William for being with us this morning, and enjoy the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline, and hello, everybody. Thanks for joining today. So, you know, we're in this new Zoom world. We're all probably sick of presentations and PowerPoints and all that kind of stuff. So the format today is going to be more of just a chat, as Caroline has said. You know, William and I have been collaborating on the itag podcast for the last 12 months or so now. We have 10 or 11 episodes out there already. So really what we thought was the idea for today was to just, you know, reflect on what we've kind of done and learned over the last 12 months and try and share some of the learnings with you all. You're obviously here today because you're interested in maybe dabbling in your own podcast, or you're just kind of interested in how it all kind of works. You know, we don't have all the answers is the first thing to say, but we're happy to share with you what we have learned. And, you know, it maybe is a bit more involved than, you know, podcasts are very popular right now, but they do take a lot of, to sustain a podcast is a different thing to starting a podcast, I'd say. So what we're going to talk about today is, you know, a concept, you know, why are you doing a podcast? We're going to talk about planning, you know, getting ready, how you actually create one. You know, you can talk a bit about, you know, editing and recording and that kind of stuff, then into launching and how you go about promoting and growing. And obviously William has a lot of background in the social and digital space and can talk to that. I guess, William, the first thing we kind of talked about is what is the concept, like, and finding your niche. So there's so many podcasts out there, you know, how it's like wood from the trees, needle in the haystack. So you really need to have, you know, be very clear on what your niche is and you know, what your podcast is about and why it's different to all the other ones out there.
Yeah, I think that was a big element of the start. It's, I suppose, a lot of this comes out of, you know, the itag community, the Atlantic festival and the conference, and looking at that, you know, what are people's interests. And I suppose one of the big elements as well is what's your, you know, with your concept or your niche, what's your real interest yourself, you know. I think it's really important to have a grow for it, have a bit of a passion for the subject that you're going to be talking to people about. And I suppose we've kind of had a blended approach on it, into taking the subject matter experts that are available, you know, through the itag skillnet training network, and then looking at the wider network and seeing what's of interest to I suppose to the itag community and the tech community as a whole.
I think it's really important too that you know why you're doing it. So, like, are you doing a podcast just merely as kind of a hobby, or are you doing it as part of your business? Is it like at a marketing channel? Because the reason I say that is it takes commitment to sustain this. It's one thing doing a podcast or a second episode or whatever, but if you're going to retain listeners and attract listeners, you need to be producing good content regularly.
Yeah,
you know, and that means commitments. That doesn't mean, you know, that means something coming out on a regular basis, you know, a good level of output, and you know, and that means it takes work. So it's like it's the commitment really. You need to have that if you want to sustain the thing. If it's just a kind of a, you know, a bit of a hobby, then that's a different thing. But you need to be clear on why you're doing it, and you know what you want to get out of it.
Yeah, and that's I mean that was a big thing. Is, I suppose, what are we looking to get out of the you know, the itag podcast? It's to I suppose to to add a bit of value back into, you know, into the community. We have an availability of experts and people who are willing to, you know, to talk about their experiences. But it's also to help promote the whole technology scene in the west of Ireland, and look at the good things that are going on there. The commitment, I think, is, you know, is a big thing. It's a, you know, it's a reasonably, again, it depends on what way you want to go about it. It's a reasonably big commitment, you know, just in pure simple terms of having to organize and line up speakers and people to talk to actually go and to record that, then to review it and you know, and do some editing and make sure that it's right before it goes out, and, you know, and then you're into the kind of promotion of it. A lot of people kind of throw out the magic number of, you know, you don't really have a podcast until you have 13 episodes done. I think we're you know, we're on that cusp at the moment, and it's important to, you know, to have a clear kind of path and view of here's who's going to be, here's who is going to be on it, and to work from there.
And maybe before we scare everyone off with all the level of effort, let's talk about some tangible things, you know, in terms of, you know, planning some of the things you might need to think about. So obviously the format is a big thing. So
yeah,
everyone will go to their Spotify or their iTunes, and there's a whole plethora, like there's some kind of nearly kind of shock jock, kind of really short, sharp podcast formats, you know, they're 5-10 minutes. And then there's other podcasts like that are, you know, the history podcast is 2 hours long. So
yeah,
you really need to know who your audience is, and then use, you know, what is the interview style going to be? You know, is it a kind of a chat kind of format like that we have here, or, you know, some combination, you know, of other formats? So, you know, that comes back to, you know, you're ultimately presenting your podcast as a brand, so that you need some element of consistency around, you know, what it sounds like, what format it's in. Then there's the length, you know, how long should it be? You know, I guess the world has changed a little bit. You know, people maybe used to listen to podcasts when they were on their commute to the office or whatever. Now maybe they're listening when they're out for their walks. So, you know, shorter is generally better, is the kind of the mantra that, you know, people put out there. But but there are podcasts equally that run for 2 hours. So you just need to kind of gauge up the content that you have, the subject matter, and the type of audience that you're kind of targeting for your podcast, and, you know, decide which one yours will be, and kind of, you know, that's your format, and your listeners know what to expect.
Yeah, I think that's a big point, Philip, is that people know what to expect, that there is some kind of structure. It doesn't have to be ultra structured, that, you know, it's all the same and it just becomes a bit boring, but that there is some level of kind of structure to it. You know that you're going to get X, Y, and Z from you know, from this podcast, and the format is, you know, is important. I think when podcasting kind of started, if you look at the likes of Joe Rogan or Tim Ferriss and these guys, they go into these big long hour to hour and a half long, you know, chats, and that's fine if you have the time to consume it. On the other side of it, then, you know, one of the really good podcasts that I came across was the Google Partners podcast, that was very specific about, this is what you're going to get out of it. It was 20 minutes long, and you were in and you were out, and it's that's nice in itself, that, you know, I've got 20 minutes, I can listen to this, or I'm going to need, you know, an hour and a half, and it could be 2 hours if depending on who the other guys were having on.
Yeah, the other thing is to have a kind of view on your, you know, not just kind of the topic of today. It's nearly to have a thread, or like maybe think ahead of themes, you know, that you have a kind of a plan for maybe your next 5 episodes, your next 10 episodes, and that way you can kind of work work that thread through the podcasts and kind of bring your listeners on that journey and have, you know, kind of the carrot there for them to come back next time as well, so that you have a kind of a theme running through them. The other thing, and this is probably more your bag, William, around the, you know, the kind of the artwork and the, you know, so everyone, you know, we have our own itag podcast background here, in a crowded space where, you know, on iTunes everyone is kind of browsing for a topic. You know, the artwork is ultra important, but there are, you know, it's not just a nice picture. You know, anyone that's kind of looked at this in any detail will know that there are very kind of clear specifications if you want to be on a platform like, you know, Apple Podcasts or you know, Stitcher or any of the Android ones.
Here, Philip, or is it just me?
I can't hear him either, William.
Okay.
Okay, am
So
I back now?
you're back
Yeah,
now.
you're back now.
And then the other thing that you have to think about, apart from the artwork and all the social media, is the technical difficulties that you may experience.
Yeah.
And I think that when we started off, at least we had things nicely contained. We were able to test the equipment and you know, and have a backup. It's kind of hard to run 2 Zoom sessions at the moment. I haven't figured out how to do that. So you're always going to be prone to a little bit of what we just experienced there. But I think, you know, it's important. Again, it depends on what the purpose of the podcast is, but I think that you need to have some level of, you know, of graphics and visuals that represent your brand and what you're trying to achieve, you know, 100%. And again, that becomes consistent. It kind of jumps a little bit into the promote, you know, and grow element as well, that if you have a level of consistency, you need to also start to look at, okay, how are we going to get the message out there, and what are the artifacts that you need to produce, you know, based on that. The approach that we've taken is to take a couple of snippets out of the podcast itself and look to you know, to use those as social media collateral as such, to throw out a bit of a teaser on you know, on and just try and get people interested in looking up the podcast. I suppose we're lucky as well that we have a, you know, I suppose we launched the podcast for a specific audience, so we've been able to push the podcast out to that audience through the itag network and through the newsletter and through the channels that are set up there. It's, if you're starting out just from scratch, that's ultimately going to be that bit more difficult.
Yeah, and like obviously it's one of the first thing that people see when they're on a directory looking at podcasts, so it's important. And itag obviously had the benefit of the existing brand and so on that we could have used, but it doesn't have to be expensive either, is the other thing, right? So there's lots of free or very cheap kind of gig economy, you know, designers out there that will do a logo for you, like for $5 or $10, or, you know, an application, a web site like Canva or any of those will very quickly allow you, you know, even if you're not a kind of a creative like me, you know, you can create those type of images quite easily.
Yeah, and I think that one of the big things is that people are, I think technical people fall into the it must be perfect trap, you know, all the time with, you know, the product that we deliver. It doesn't have to be perfect, you know, it just needs to be at a particular level, and it needs to service that, you know, that need. People will put up with, you know, to a degree, they'll put up with audio that isn't great sometimes, but that's one of the I would say it's the kind of non-negotiable on it. The other elements around, say, the logo or the branding or, those kind of things, they'll put up with it if the message is correct and right. And even on, say, the audio, there's a couple of guys that I would listen to quite regularly, and because of the content, their audio isn't great sometimes, but because of the content, I'll give them a pass on it. So it's not expensive. It doesn't have to be expensive. You could spend huge amounts of money on it if you want. A good microphone is a worthwhile investment. We all probably have good headsets at the moment from because we're all working from home, so stuff like that is more and more available for us.
Yeah, like that equipment side of it again, it's it's back to what are you doing this for, and you can invest accordingly. So a popular one, like the one I have here on the desk, is the Blue Yeti. It's a popular microphone, not endorsing any one in particular, but there are anything from like 30 bucks up to 150 bucks will get you a very high quality microphone that can double up in this era of working from home as well. It's useful as a kind of a desktop conference microphone as well if you want to get away from using the headsets. We'll get to editing maybe and some other the equipment and so on that you need when we get onto the creating side of it. I guess on that, from a planning point of view, you do need to kind of think of a budget, like what do you want to, you are going to need something to record with, something to record on, and then you're going to need something to host your podcast. So again, there's a whole plethora of different options out there, but a few things to think about. Obviously you need a server or a provider to host your podcast. So you can do that yourself. You can build your own website and you can host everything yourself, but why would you do that? There's lots of companies out there that do it. There's things like Libsyn. We host on a platform called SoundCloud. So if you could just put everybody on mute, that'd be great, because there's some background noise and it's kind of cutting in and out. Thanks. So in terms of hosting, there's a whole range of stuff to suit every budget, but there's a few key things around some of the platforms. You want something that hosts, that supports kind of RSS syndication, that allows you basically have your podcast picked up automatically by any of the directories like Spotify, like iTunes. If your platform doesn't support that, then you're not going to automatically be able to publish something to your hosting site and for it automatically to show up in your directory. That's a key thing to think about. Then there's the cost of like these are subscriptions generally. So sites like SoundCloud will give you a certain amount for free. So they might give you enough, and they generally charge by capacity, like the amount of storage space. So if you have like 5 episodes of your podcast, you might be able to store them up for free on a free account on SoundCloud. But as soon as you go to your 6th one, you won't have any more space, and you either have to delete one or you upgrade to the paid platform. So, if you are serious about this thing kind of being around for a while and you want to build up a library of content, there's no real way around that. You are going to have to pay for some kind of service to support that. The other option is, or the other extension, for itag, we all obviously have the itag.ie website, but a number of podcasts, consider launching not only the audio for their podcast, but in tandem with like something like a WordPress website. And that is an alternative as an archive for all your prior podcasts. So you might have the current stuff up on on one of the hosting platforms, but you might have a whole archive. Indeed, it's a good idea to have a whole archive of it all on your own website as well. So that gets into the planning too about how much you want to get into that, because then you're managing, WordPress and a website as well as your podcast hosting platform.
Yeah, I suppose it just something to kind of consider there, Philip, as well is your kind of searchability or your Googleability. Some of the, I suppose, again, and it depends on your budget, and there's creative ways to go about it, but some of the, let's say, the larger podcasts like Masters of Scale and people like these, they provide the full transcript, and they stick that up on their website. And the reason that they're doing that is just so that if somebody searches and one of the keywords pops up, that pops up in the list. So it can, it's if you're looking at it as a strategy to drive traffic to your website, it's worth looking at transcribing the podcasts. And there's many different services out there, from your automatic kind of transcribing, and your kind of machine learning, speech and audio recognition, to your rev.com, where you give them an audio file and they'll just give you a transcript in any language that you want. So that's worth thinking about.
Yeah, and anybody that's involved in search engine optimization and so on, like the tagging and all of that stuff, that that's all supported by a lot of these websites as well, when you host them. So that's another kind of aspect that in terms of the amount of time and effort to get into this, there's a what might have started out, I think you're getting the picture, that what might have started out as a nice idea of let's record a podcast about my favorite topic, to take it to the next level and start to kind of compete with the more established podcasts. It brings in a lot of other these strands that are considerations when you're planning ahead. I guess we talked about hosting. Maybe we'll move on a bit to recording, actually, the actual recording itself. So we've talked about equipment. Obviously a good microphone is very helpful. When we launched this podcast, William was very gracious to have his kind of his company's facilities available to us, and we used to record in person with guests that came to visit us. Obviously, in this climate, it's not an option. So we are on platforms like this one we're on here. Zoom obviously allows you to record, and you can get both video and audio downloaded. There are plenty of other platforms, whether it's Skype. There are plugins that you can get for Skype that allow you, kind of depending on what version you're on, to create MP3 files. I know other podcasts are using a platform whereby, but these are all like free video conferencing kind of platforms that do allow you have the built-in recording. The challenge with some of these tools, and Skype particularly, I know they've upgraded the quality recently, but originally the quality you get, obviously, in terms of the sound quality of recording in person, with a proper studio kind of setup, is very different to the sound quality you get when when you're recording over Skype. So
It can all be a bit Darth Vader-y.
Yeah, and I guess, and that plays back to the experience as well, right? So you'll all have we're all spending so much time listening to headphones and so on in our professional lives. So like when you have a poor sound quality, like whether it's a bit tinny or Darth Vader-y or whatever it is, it can get really annoying for your listeners, and they're just gone, right? They're not gonna listen to that. Yeah. So even when you have if you have great quality at source when you record it, because you have a nice kind of high-end laptop or PC connected to a good microphone, and you're recording into like, the software you can use, whether it's Audacity is a freeware version, like Adobe Audition would be the kind of go-to industry standard, but that's license and that's cost. Audacity, Audacity is a well-established kind of freeware version of that with a lot of the same features. It's very functional, maybe not as usable, like a lot of freeware, but it definitely does the job, and it's quite reliable. The odd time it kind of gives up the ghost and you may have to kind of restart or whatever, but for a starter, it's a great platform. But the point I was trying to get to is about the audio is, when you have these disparate sources like Zoom or Skype or whatever, you can always do a lot with the editing process. So there are ways to increase bass, increase treble, kind of sound engineering, I guess. And you could do a full university course on sound engineering, right, and make a professional career out of it. But out of the box, you go to YouTube, you'll get 5 things to do with your audio to make it sound better, and straight away you'll go from having a tinny kind of sounding Skype recording to something that's got deep tones and a bit of bass in it, and it just sounds good. I know William probably has lots to add in this space, given that it's in his professional domain.
I mean, it's kind of like the old concept of bad data in is equals bad data out. If you've got poor quality audio, you can put it through whatever you want. You'll always end up with, you might get to okay quality audio out of it, but it's always much better to deal with it at source and find the right platform that's going to give you a decent level of audio. It's pretty easy to pick up the people who are recording over Skype because there's a particular sound to it. I think the stuff coming out of Zoom is a lot better. It's about finding the right the right platform so that you have a decent quality and a decent level. The microphone that you record on and whoever you're talking to is going to have a big impact on that. So when I'm when I'm going into a video shoot or getting set up like for something of that order, I'll make sure that there's a decent checklist. Have you got, where are we shooting? Is the lighting okay? It's about just getting those things right, making sure that people aren't wearing kind of check colors or particular colors that the sensors don't like. So if you can do a little bit of prep on that type of stuff, and particularly around the audio, you want to make sure that you're in a nice quiet room. I know I have a radiator that's going to tick in the background. I'm not sure if people can pick that up, but you turn those things off, you turn the fans off, you turn off the fridge if you have it in the room. You get to somewhere that's going to give you a better chance of having good clean audio, and then you can work from there. You put it through Audacity or Audition, add a little bit of treble, a bit of bass, and it brings it up a huge amount. And it's worth looking at those 3 or 5 things that you can do in kind of post-production to bring up the levels. Everybody speaks at a different level, so it's a really good idea to normalize the audio so that the levels are all consistent. And I'm not talking really low and Philip's talking really loud. There's small little things like that that just add a big amount in the post-production, and they're once you've done them once, it's a 5-minute job to run it through and get something that's just that bit crisper.
Yeah, and obviously the old soft furnishings help as well, right? Just from a practicality point of view. So if
Yeah.
if you're in a room with like bare walls and so on, you will get a lot of echo. So you sometimes see, if you see a radio studio or anything on in TV or the movies, they have looked like what looks like kind of egg the cases that you put store eggs in, those kind of padded, and that they're all about just dampening the sound. So equally, people have kind of carpet panels on the walls, or even curtains or
Yeah.
anything.
Curtains, towels, cushions stacked up behind your, you don't see what's over here. So that could be nicely stacked up there, and it'll just deaden the sound, or it doesn't go off into an echo that, spreads around the room. Again, it depends on the room and the setup that you, that you actually have.
Yeah, and of course you can go off and buy all types of kind of studio gear, and you get these you can buy these booths that surround you, and you see the music stars recording in them and so on. But you don't have to do that for your inaugural podcast. It's as simple as the soft furnishings William has just talked about. Maybe just keep moving there after the recording piece. You mentioned post-processing, William.
Yeah.
So like editing. So it'd be nice for, when you're up and running, you can just, record a podcast, one and done, and it goes out. But I guess the reality, especially in this environment of, some of the technical challenges that we face with this remote working, and, we don't have the luxury of having a kind of a backup recording, or if there's a break in the line or whatever, you do need to do some element of, not only to get the sound quality right, but in terms of eliminating repeated content or anything like that from your interview.
Yeah.
But that's all part of the post-processing that happens.
And it's, I suppose it's important as well to think about who you're talking to, and sometimes the stuff that you really want at the start, you end up getting out of them at the end. So you may need to move stuff around, and the nature of talking to anybody is that you get warmed up after a while. It's very easy to have big long pauses, or it to be very kind of flat and dead. And again, it depends on your relationship with whoever you're talking to. If you've, it's a good idea to try and prime things up or get things warmed up early in the conversation, so that you're switched on and the content is is right. And there's a couple of tricks to doing that. Philip, the 5 questions at the end, he asked them towards the start of it, so that kind of breaks down barriers, and it just opens the whole thing up. But you do have to do that bit of work then to either cut stuff out or move stuff around, and and spend a bit of time. But again, it's like everything. You could make a complete industry out of it, and you could spend hours upon hours, and people have it becomes all consuming, and it becomes their effectively their job. They mightn't be getting paid for it, but they put that amount of time into it. But you can, by being a bit smart about how you think about it, you can get in and out quite quickly. And the ideal is that you shoot your one and done. So if that's all the time that you have, then by a little bit more pre-planning of, okay, when, at what point is it on, and is it going to be shippable, is going to be good to think about.
Yeah, and it's like any meeting, or when you're meeting people, it takes a while. It's a bit of an icebreaker, and you just gotta get warmed up. And as William has said, sometimes you're into the conversation and you're kind of really getting going, and that may be actually the part that is the leading intro into your podcast. And that's kind of something that you learn with having done it a few times. The other thought that came into my head has gone straight out of my head now altogether, and it was to do with the audience, I guess, ultimately is the thing. So like anybody who's willing to put the effort in to do a podcast, is obviously into their topic and they're interested in doing it, and they're motivated to do it. But there needs to be something in it for the audience, right? So like we always, when we're talking to our candidate interviewees coming in for the podcast, one of the first questions we ask them is, what is the golden nugget or the value that you want to deliver to our listeners? So there has to be some call to action or some new piece of information or something. That's very interesting. I might be able to try that myself. There has to be some hook in there for the audience. And if you don't have that in your content, and it comes into your editing as well, that you have to, if you're doing a little kind of a teaser or a soundbite for the podcast, you need to have that hook in there for the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the going to move on to we've talked about recording and editing. Maybe promoting is the kind of next thing. So like obviously publishing happens in between. You once you have your your hosting site set up. But I guess social media is pervasive in this space in terms of getting it out there. Like it's kind of table stakes that you're once you're on a recognized platform hosting your podcast, you can then submit your basically the URL to your episodes to your hosting directories, like your iTunes, like your Spotify, whatever. And so it's kind of like an approval process. So they, you submit all your artwork, you submit the URL to your podcast from your hosting platform. It can vary between 12 and 36 hours to get approved by some of these. And obviously if there's content or they think that the material that you're promoting, or that if it's kind of maybe plagiaristic or whatever, for whatever reason, they might choose not to bring your podcast forward. But assuming it all gets approved, you're then kind of live on and searchable on their directories. So if you go to iTunes and type in itag podcast, and you can do the keywords there as well. Equally, if you put in Atlantic, which is the festival that itag runs every year, you'll find the itag podcast. So that's the kind of I guess the technicalities of getting it up on those directories. And there isn't kind of one Uber directory. You have to go around and do something with Spotify, you have to do something with Apple, you got to do something with Stitcher.
Yeah.
At least in my experience.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that like one of the key points about that, Philip, is that again, if you're doing this as part of something else and you have a launch of something on, the 1st of November, you want to kind of make sure that you have all the ducks in a row so that it is actually live on the 1st of the 1st of November, when you hope to kind of send out the rest of the information about it. And you need to look at it is, again, it depends on what you're looking to get out of it, and where you're looking for this stuff to go to. but you need some form of a a marketing plan and a plan of, well, okay, when I release a podcast, I'm going to take a snippet, I'm going to put it on Instagram, or I'm going to put it on Facebook, or whatever. I'm going to stick it on LinkedIn. I'm going to send it out to my the newsletter. I'm going to promote it through my network. And you need to build some some form of audience, and your own network is really the best way of is the best way of doing that, and hopefully get it to start to trickle out through other people's networks.
And obviously, if you have, like in our case, we have guests on for interviews, so they have their own networks as well. So we kind of piggyback on they piggyback on our network, and we piggyback on their network.
Yeah.
And we get it out there. Like social is obviously, where do you stop? You have your, multiple platforms. You've got your Twitters, you've got your Instagrams, you've got your Facebooks, and where do you draw the line? You've got your LinkedIn. There are options to help with the social media side as well, in terms of platforms that allow you kind of publish once to many to many destinations, right? So whether that's some of the Will has the lowdown on all of these, but you can.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of tools out there to do that, but I suppose one of the big things is, if it's an organizational podcast, then you probably social presence as it currently stands. You're either on LinkedIn or you're on Facebook. It depends on who your audience is, but I wouldn't recommend going and saying, well, actually we're just going to throw this out to everywhere. You double down on the channels that you're currently operating. It's another set of content that you can give to your existing audience, depending on how strong that audience is, and play that one until you've really, I suppose, maximize it and capitalized on it, and then start to look at the other avenues that you can push it out there. And there, as Philip said, there's a bunch of tools out there to allow you to do that publishing. There's a number of free tools. And there's some really expensive ones. The likes of Sprout Social is one of the top end ones if you're managing a big brand, and then you've got Zoho Social, which is I think there's a free plan for for singular brands, which allows you to connect 2 or 3 accounts, or that kind of thing, that just makes your life that bit easier.
Yeah, so you can connect up your accounts to the one account, so you publish it once and it goes out. I guess the other thing about doubling down on the channels is the feedback loop. So like in true kind of digital marketing fashion, right, you need some feedback on the content that you've out there. So in our case, our hosting platform gives us analytics on where the list, who's listening, what they're listening to. Not obviously compliant with all kind of data protection and all that. Now we don't know who specifically is listening, but in anonymized form, there's information on the geographies that people are listening in. So quite quickly what episodes are a bigger hit than others. What things like what type of devices they're listening on. So are people listening on iTunes? Are they listening on Android? Are they listening on a website? How did they get to you? Did they come to you via the itag website, or did they come to you like via Google search or whatever? So again, this is another thing that has multiple layers. There are people whose whole career or whole role it is to kind of figure out kind of the digital marketing and the analytics around marketing and how all that stuff works. But the point is, there are some kind of high level tools that are available to you built into these platforms that give you that feedback loop. Obviously, if you want to get into very kind of sophisticated analysis of how your kind of promotion and marketing of your podcast is going, then that's a bigger deal. Which kind of it's not a it's monetization, I guess, is the other kind of thing at the end of all of this. So you get a lot of people, no more than kind of the YouTubers. There are people out there making a very good living from podcasts, but to be able to, just like any whether that's through kind of sponsorship of your podcast or advertising, but it all comes back to those metrics I just talked about, that like if you're going to monetize, you need proof, or you need metrics on your your listenership that you can that are vetted and kind of, what's the right word, they're
social proof.
Yeah, they exist, so you can go to your potential marketing channels to start to monetize. And there are, even on our podcast, we've been approached. There's companies out there that exist to help people monetize their podcasts. So we've been kind of getting emails from these various companies because they're polling all the podcasts that are out there, and they're touting for business themselves. So they're contacting, this podcast, and I'm sure many others, with a view to how they can help us monetize the podcast. And I guess that all is back to like, why are you doing this? Is this your hobby, or is this part of your professional role, or is it something else? But it'd be nice to get some payback for all the effort that you put in to create your podcast at the end of it all. But I guess that's the long pole. You really have to you have to have something that's worth monetizing, and that takes a lot of upfront work.
And as people listening to you, not enough, Philip.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's about just knowing why you're doing it, and and if monetization is something that you're looking for, then you need to build a right good audience to be able to go and do that, and I suppose have a topic that people are interested in looking at.
Yeah, and we've been just going for kind of organic growth, right? So we have events, we promote it through our various channels, even something like this. So steadily, slowly but surely, the amount of followers has been kind of increasing. But then you can get into all types of paid promotion on your social. You can get into like Facebook boosting posts, all that kind of stuff. If you're into kind of, from a growth point of view, what your objectives are. But for the nature of the itag podcast, it's for engagement with the member companies and so on. So it's kind of more an organic approach. So I'm just conscious of the time. We want to leave it for any questions, but just quickly to summarize, maybe, we talked about, why are you here? Like, what's your concept? What's your niche? Why are you doing this? The planning, getting everything ready, just thinking through what you need, and what your brand is going to be, what your graphics are going to be, what's your hosting strategy, your website strategy, all that kind of stuff. Then there's the mechanics of creating, which in some ways the actual 15, 20, 45 minutes is maybe in some ways it's the smallest piece of all of this. But you have to record that, and then you have to get it editing. Then we talked about launching and getting your podcast out there on a host site and in the directories, promoting it, and growing it, and ultimately, if you want to proceed to monetization, that's the next step. So thank you all for your time. I'll open it up, unless Will, you have anything else? Maybe open it up for
I think that's pretty much it. Hopefully, people have found that of some value and some use.
Thank you both very much. I think it was an excellent presentation. You really went into depth there. Just quick, I'm sure there's some questions, but just quick, when you mentioned earlier that you'd tell us about the equipment that we needed, so, or did you give us a brand name, that speaker microphone that you were talking about, or not? Did I miss it?
Yeah, so like there's, you know, far be it from me to be recommending kind of particular brands, but you know, like the one I have here is a Blue Yeti, but there are very that is a kind of a known one in the industry. But what I would recommend for folks is, you know, your friend Google is great in this regard. So all your websites that do rating, like if you put in your, you know, top 10 best microphones for podcasting, you'll get like lots of very insightful reviews and comparison for different price points and different objectives. You know, so if you're, you know, this one is kind of a good all-rounder, but you know, obviously not endorsing any particular company or anything like that.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
so the other thing is the, you know, obviously you need some type of laptop or PC, and you need some editing software, and Audacity is the go-to freeware version for that.
yeah. So I use a lot of the Rode equipment for audio, you know, for both the video production, but it's pretty, you know, it's pretty high end. You can spend crazy amounts of money on high end audio equipment, but you know, 50 to 100 euros will buy you a lot of you know, a lot of microphone.
RODE, right?
Yeah, and then any of the kind of, I'd also use the Zoom recorders, not Zoom. There's not
There's steady state handheld recorders for,
yeah,
you know, if we were mobile doing an interview, you know, there's small little hand-sized device,
Yes.
very high quality, and they have a range of price points, right? Well, you get an entry level one at,
you get an entry level one for like 100 euros, and then they go on up. So like the Zoom H1 and the Zoom H5 are, you know, they give exceptionally good quality audio, but again, it's just about finding what the best value out for your money is. I'd use the Adobe Premiere Pro for any of the video editing stuff, and Adobe Audition for any of the audio processing, which are paid versions. But that's the joys of being a video editor.
Yeah.
You have access to these tools.
Has anybody any questions they'd like to ask Philip or William at this stage? A lot to take in there as well, but feel free to ask or to write it in the chat there if you do. I'm just wondering, you mentioned about the regularity of publishing, like how often should that be initially, you know?
yeah, there's like if you're familiar with LinkedIn, you know, there's a feature in LinkedIn that you can post your post right now, or you can post it when LinkedIn thinks your audience is most receptive. So the same kind of concept applies here about, you know, publishing an like ours on kind of the Friday night of a bank holiday weekend probably isn't a great idea, right?
Yeah.
So you need to kind of think about who your audience is, and that's more the timing, Caroline, I guess, of when you put it out there, when you release it. But you like, I guess, to build credibility, you want a cadence. So we you know, we kind of go on at a minimum of once a month. You know, I'm involved in some other kind of podcasting activity, more kind of sports based, and we were going weekly with that because there were events every week. But regular cadence is good because it's about building credibility, and, you know, people know what to expect. And like if you're if like anything, we're all creatures of habit. If you're used to something showing up every Friday and then it doesn't show up for 2 Fridays, you kind of wonder, is it, what it's all about? So that's kind of the context there.
Fair enough. Yeah. Great. Anybody want to?
I'm just wondering, guys, do you normally, I know William spoke about the warming the person up, but do you normally kind of speak to them, have a meeting with them prior to the podcast, or is it just maybe you bring them in a bit earlier and have that chat then with them?
I think you kind of, well, again, it depends on, with some people, we've done a pre-podcast talk, or, and to set out their expectations. And I think that works, with some people, and then some people, they don't need it. They just are happy to jump kind of straight on and have a chat. I think it's important though to spend that 5 or 10 minutes before you kind of click record in getting them warmed up and getting them ready, and just, I suppose, making sure that everybody's on the kind of same page on what you're going to talk about and what maybe can't be published, and things like that. So
yeah, there's the whole rapport side of it, and then there's the actual content. So so we have like a kind of a piece of collateral that kind of, especially for people that are maybe somebody that's visiting the area or whatever, that isn't familiar with itag or what we do, or that kind of thing. We have a kind of a piece of marketing kind of material that we send to them, and we would typically have a quick call just to level set on content and key messages as in advance of the podcast, because especially some of our speakers are maybe working in areas that there can be some kind of corporate sensitivities or whatever, and you just need to be clear up front about what's allowed and what's not allowed. Some folks need to get clearance from the organizations they work for before this thing can actually be broadcast. So there's that side of it as well. You need to have, you don't want to be having those discussions 5 minutes before the podcast starts, right? That needs to be planned up front.
Any go horribly wrong that you just couldn't warm up?
Not so far.
Good.
Might get you onto UNC. We'll get you in. We'll see.
Me and Caroline will come in and torture you.
Absolutely. Listen, guys, I'm conscious of time, and as well as Philip and William having day jobs, they're very passionate about the itag podcast, and it's not often we get the opportunity to thank them, but we'd like to thank both of them, because you do need that passion and you do need that commitment to it. So we appreciate that, and thank you for taking the time out of your days today to be here with us, and hopefully we'll have part 2 very soon. And don't forget to check out the podcast, guys, the itag podcast. I put it there in the chat. And again, enjoy your bank holiday weekend. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Very welcome. Thanks, man, for tuning in, folks.
Very informative. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.